So Hare Krishna everybody. So today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 8, entitled Questions by King Parikshit, and we're reading text 7. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yadatato mato Brahman Deharambosya datubi Yadrichaya hetuna va Bhavanto janate yata Yad adatu matto Brahman Deharambosya datubi Yadrichaya hetuna va Bhavanto janate yata. So we'll do word for word. Yat, as it is. Adatu mataha, without being materially constituted. Brahman, O learned Brahmana. Deha, the material body. Arambha, the beginning of. Asya, of the living being. Dhatubi, by matter. Yadrichaya, without cause. Accidental. Hetuna, due to some cause. Va, either. Bhavantaha, your good self. Janate, as you may know it. Yata, so you inform me. Translation. O learned Brahmana, the transcendental spirit soul is different from the material body. Does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? Will you kindly explain this, for it is known to you. Please repeat. O learned Brahmana, the transcendental spirit soul is different from the material body. Does he acquire the body accidentally or by some cause? Will you kindly explain this, for it is known to you. Prabhupada ki jai. Could someone please put Prabhupada's book for him? Thank you. Maharaj Parikshit, being a typical devotee, is not only satisfied by confirming the importance of hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam from the representative of Brahmaji by disciplic succession, but he is still more anxious to establish the philosophical basis of Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam is the science of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and as such, all questions that may arise in the mind of a serious student must be cleared by the statements of the authority. A person on the path of devotional service may inquire from his spiritual master all about the spiritual position of God and the living beings. From the Bhagavad Gita as well as from the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is known that qualitatively the Lord and the living beings are one. The living being in the conditioned state of material existence is subjected to many transmigrations by continuous changing of the material body. But what are the causes of the material embodiment of the part and parcel of the Lord? Maharaj Parikshit inquires about this very important matter for the benefit of all classes of candidates on the path of self-realization and devotional service to the Lord. Indirectly, it is confirmed that the Supreme Being, the Lord, makes no such material changes of body. He is spiritually whole, with no difference between his body and his soul, unlike the conditioned soul. The liberated living beings who associate with the Lord in person are also exactly like the Lord. Only the conditioned souls awaiting liberation are subjected to change of bodies. How was the process first begun? In the process of devotional service, the first step is to take shelter of the spiritual master and then inquire from the spiritual master all about the process. This inquiry is essential for immunity to all kinds of offenses on the path of devotional service. Even if one is fixed in devotional service, like Maharaj Parikshit, he must still inquire from the realized spiritual master all about this. In other words, the spiritual master must also be well versed and learned, so that he may be able to answer all these inquiries from the devotees. Thus, one who is not well versed in the authorized scriptures and not able to answer all such relevant inquiries should not pose as a spiritual master for the matter of material gain. It is illegal to become a spiritual master if one is unable to deliver the disciple. Jai Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Namo Om Vishnu Pada Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimati Pe Krishna Goswami Namani Namo Vishnu Prasad Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namani Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurajani Shusha Shunyavadi Paschati Satanini. So I seek the blessings of all the devotees that I can speak something that is beneficial to us all. So Srila Prabhupada has mentioned in this purport that the living entity is, in one sense, there's two aspects. One is that the living entity is non-different from the Lord, and Prabhupada gives the example of the gold mine. So the gold mine is compared to the Lord, and gold is compared to the living entities. So the gold mine and the gold are same, but the difference is in the quantity. So we are all spirit souls, part and parcel of the Lord. So we also have that same spiritual nature. We are eternal. We have this quality, Satchid Ananda. We are eternal. We have knowledge, and we are blissful. So, and then the difference here Prabhupada mentions is that the conditioned soul is subject to change of material bodies, and Parikshit Maharaj is inquiring from Shukadev Goswami that how was this process first begun? How is it that we have become conditioned? And then he also mentions how the pure devotees, they are similar to the Lord. It's only the conditioned souls awaiting liberation that are subjected to changes of body. So in Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada mentions the verse in H6, Yam Yam Vapi Smaram Bhavam Tejate Ante Kalevaram Tam Tam Evaiti Konteya Sadatad Bhava Bhavitaha. So I'll just read the purport of Prabhupada in this verse. He says, the process of changing one's nature at the critical moment of death is here explained. A person who at the end of his life quits his body thinking of Krishna attains the transcendental nature of the Supreme Lord. But it is not true that a person who thinks of something other than Krishna attains the same transcendental state. This is a point we should note very carefully. How can one die in the proper state of mind? Maharaj Bharat, although a great personality, thought of a deer at the end of his life. And so in the next life he was transferred into the body of a deer. Although as a deer he remembered his past activities, he had to accept that animal body. Of course, one's thoughts during the course of one's life accumulate to influence one's thoughts at the moment of death. So this life creates one's next life. If in one's present life one lives on the mode of goodness, and always thinks of Krishna, it is possible for one to remember Krishna at the end of one's life. That will help one be transferred to the transcendental nature of Krishna. If one is transcendentally absorbed in Krishna's service, then his next body will be transcendental, spiritual, not material. Therefore, the chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, is the best process for successfully changing one's state of being at the end of one's life. So here, Prabhupada in the purport, he clearly mentions how, in this question in Bhagavatam, how was this process first? So how does it begin? So it's by contemplating the sense organs, the sense objects. So we come to this material world because we want to be the center. Krishna is the center in the spiritual world, but we want to be the center. So as soon as that thought comes, we fall down into the material world. And then Krishna is so merciful and so kind, just like a father. He has children, but when the children get older and they become teenagers, they want to go out there and do their own thing. And the father, he loves his children, so he doesn't force them to stay at home and protect them around a fence. He gives them that freedom. But at the same time, he educates them and gives them the knowledge. Just like Ramai Swami, he was giving class on the advent of Bhagavad Gita on Tuesday, and he was talking about how Krishna was more displeased with Dhritarashtra, the father of Duryodhana, in the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Was a result of that was because Dhritarashtra, he was the father and he had the duty to instruct his son Duryodhana and guide him, but he neglected his duty because of weakness of heart. He was feeling like soft-hearted and weak because he was attached to his son on the bodily platform. So this is also another lesson we learn, that Prabhupada also mentions in this purport, that one shouldn't become a spiritual master if one is unable to deliver the disciple. So similarly, there's a verse also in Bhagavatam which says that one shouldn't become a father, a mother, a teacher, or any type of guide if one is unable to deliver his dependence from the cycle of birth and death. So I was thinking about that when Ramai Swami was talking about it, because we have observed also within the Krishna consciousness movement, where children have grown up in the movement, and maybe some of them are now in their 40s, have grown up, but then they were actually given such good training, of course there were other aspects involved, but they were given that they were going for Mangala Aarti and they were doing everything. So what was lacking? So of course there's many aspects involved. It has to be done with love and care and seeing the nature of the child, and also they need their sleep and things like that. So the duty of the parents is to also train their children, because we are functioning in the material world, so we also need to carry out our duties in the material world, be able to go out and work and things like that. But the ultimate goal of life shouldn't be neglected. So the duty of the parents, the teachers, is to teach the dependents that what is the ultimate goal of life. Just like when Bhanu Swami was here, he was visiting, and actually in a few classes he mentioned how devotees shouldn't come to the spiritual master, to the guru. So guru is not only the sannyasi, the guru is also siksha gurus. We have many devotees that we take guidance from. So Bhanu Swami was saying we shouldn't go to the spiritual master to inquire about mundane material aspects. Of course, for devotees it's connected to Krishna, but we don't want to waste the spiritual master's time inquiring about, who should I marry? Can you check the astrology? Because as we all know, Bhanu Swami is very expert in astrology. So even when he said that, then there were devotees who were still going to him to ask for astrology. So, I'm not pointing fingers, I'm also looking at myself. Like, we attend Bhagavatam class and we hear, but is it really penetrating the heart? Are we really applying that knowledge on a daily basis? Are we truly imbibing and being conscientious? Like, how can I increase my service? How can I increase the quality of my service? Whatever it may be, whether it's sweeping the floor, like this morning Sadhana Mataji was sweeping the floor so nicely, and And Steph is always also helping, and we see Emma also cleaning the floor. And you observe, how conscientiously they moving the Tulsi Devi, sweeping behind the fireplace, moving the board, being so conscientious. So on an individual level, we need to also see how we can increase the quality of our service, and also observe other devotees and be inspired by them of, how can I increase my service? How can I improve? And it's not that, maybe I've been practicing 10 years, 20 years, or I've been practicing longer, that I can't learn from someone, or I can't improve my service. We can always improve our service. Just like in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada mentions how the conditioned living entities, we have 4 defects. So who can name the 4 defects of the living entity of the human being? Yes, propensity to cheat others, imperfect senses, subject to illusion, and yes, we commit mistakes. So even we see, like we can't even, our senses can't even perceive a little microscopic object. We need to see through the lenses of a microscope. And also our senses made, what's the word? We may be illusioned by our senses, just like Prabhupada gives the example of in India there was a village and they'd never seen a train before, and it was the first time a train was coming. So some villages, all the villagers were there, and some waited till the train was coming and they heard a sound, so they thought, the train is that sound. And then they went away, and then others waited a bit longer and they saw the lights and they heard the sound, so they said, a train is that light and the sound. And then those who waited at the end, they saw, the train is a vehicle, and all the aspects of the vehicle, they observed it. So just like Prabhupada mentions, there's 3 aspects of God, of Krishna. There's the Brahman realization, the Paramatma realization, and Bhagavan. So Brahman realization is just like the example Prabhupada gives of the sun. We see the reflection of the sun. That's like the Brahman realization. And Paramatma is like, the Lord is present in all living entities as the Paramatma, the Supersoul within the heart. So that's another progressive further step in understanding God. And then Bhagavan realization is understanding the personal features of the Lord. It's like the example Prabhupada gives of a high court judge. When he's in the high court, he's addressed as Lord, yes, Your Honor, or Lord. So a very formal relationship. So like Brahman realization, very awe and reverence, very formal. But when he goes home, his wife is not going to address him as my Lord, or Your Honor, like that. She's going to address him by his name, and his child is not going to address him as that. The child is going to say, Father, dear Father. And the father, once there was a man waiting to see a great personality, and then he waited, and he's thinking, why is that? I think it was the president or Prime Minister. He waited. Krishna Kirtan Prabhu, I always look to him because he knows all the answers. So the Prime Minister, someone wanted to see the Prime Minister, and then he was told to wait. The Prime Minister is doing something very important. So the person was waiting, and then he peeked through the door and he saw the Prime Minister is piggybacking his grandson on his back. So that's the personal feature. There's so much more intimacy involved in knowing who God is, what's his different names, his address, who his parents are, and what his activities are. That's the personal feature of the Lord. So we want to know Krishna personally, and how do we know him is by approaching the spiritual master. So there's the famous verse in Bhagavad Gita, which is tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te gnanam gdanina tatpadarshinaha. So one should approach the spiritual master in all humility, and one should render humble menial service and inquire from him. And the last sentence of that purport that Prabhupada gives is very crucial. It says that there's that reciprocation and knowledge involved when one renders humble menial service to the spiritual master. So the spiritual master can be a Siksha Guru, the one who we take guidance from, or a Diksha Guru who we've taken formal initiation from, like a Sannyas Guru or a Grahastha Guru, like Vaisheshika Prabhu. So when we render humble menial service, that's when the knowledge comes. Prabhupada mentions clearly also in his books that it's not an armchair philosophy. It's not that we read the books and I've got the knowledge, and then quoting the knowledge, or when the spiritual master comes, then taking photos with the spiritual master and things like that. It says the spiritual master is pleased. I was listening to Charitamrita on BVL. It says the spiritual master is not pleased, so much pleased when the disciple gives him money. Of course, when the spiritual master comes, we give Guru Dakshina, which is money which is used in service to the Lord. So it says the spiritual master is not so much pleased when we give him money. He's pleased when the disciple follows the instructions of the spiritual master and is preaching. So two aspects: following the sadhana bhakti, chanting 16 rounds, or if we starting to chant, maintaining that vow of chanting maybe even one round and gradually increasing. And the taste will come. We think it's it's impossible, but it will come when one sincerely follows the process, associates with devotees, hears Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees, and gradually one's heart becomes purified. So I lost my train of thought. Sorry. So by following this process, we can become purified, and gradually the layers are removed, just like an onion has many layers. So when we're following this process, when we are chanting, all the layers get removed. So the spiritual master, he guides us, follow the 4 regulative principles. And there's no meat eating, no illicit sex, so no sex outside of marriage, no gambling and no intoxication. And also we are so fortunate here at New Govardhan, within the temple complex and also within the wider area, that there's many devotees living close to the community, so we have access to the temple. So Prabhupada has opened up these spiritual embassies, this ISKCON International Society for Krishna Consciousness. He's opened up these spiritual embassies, these temples and preaching centers, that we can take advantage of these opportunities and attend the Mangal Aarti program, chant our rounds in the association of devotees. It's so powerful, because we are living here. Sometimes, maybe I can speak for myself, we take it for granted that we have so easy access to the temple. We can chant in the association of devotees. We have Mahaprasadam. Our temple, we are so fortunate. We are under such good management, under Ajita Prabhu and Krishna Kirtan Prabhu, Alalana Prabhu. We have so many amazing senior devotees. We are under their program, and by their practice and their heart, Krishna reciprocates, and then there's abundance at our temple at New Govardhan abundance. So we have so much Mahaprasadam. There's so much opportunity, even when devotees are coming along, new people, they're given so much opportunity to lead kirtan, so much opportunity here to do so many things, and we should take advantage of it. But at the same time, we shouldn't push ourselves forward and think that, we need to see ourselves what we are doing. That are we following the 4 regulative principles? Are we trying to take advantage of the process? Are we attending Mangal Aarti? Are we doing these things and not just pushing ourselves forward like, I want to do this, I want to do that. Of course, externally one may follow the process. We may be worshipping the deities, or we may be doing many things, but then we need to follow the process. It's a heart process. Just like when Shyam Our dear Sham got initiation from Kadamba Kanana Swami recently, and he was named Sham Manohara Das. So I wasn't able to attend, but I saw this little video on the resident page that Yadunandan Prabhu posted, and he caught a bit of the initiation lecture where Kadamba Kanana Swami was saying that Manohar means also it's the process of the mind. So it's not that externally we are following the process, so it's also a heart process that we need to follow with our mind, with our heart. So that is only between us and Krishna. So no one can tell that. But so we need to be very introspective and question, what is my motive? Why am I doing this? Or am I making a great effort to dress, adding flowers and that? Is it just because guests are here, or is it I'm making this effort every day? Every time I'm doing my service, I'm making the extra effort to come early, prepare for the Lord, not keep the Lord waiting, or making an effort to pick flowers and doing these things, is so that we can thinking, how can I increase my service for the Lord so also the devotees are pleased? Because when the Krishna is pleased, we know that when the devotees are pleased, and the devotees are pleased, Krishna is pleased. So we want to also please the devotees and make the darshan nice, or we want to cook a nice offering, things like that. So that is for us to see that is between us, our spiritual master, and Krishna. So if we are trying to push ourselves forward and we're not trying to cultivate that internal consciousness, then we're only cheating ourselves. And I've observed that devotees don't really say anything, and also we have our false ego, speaking for myself, we don't want to hear someone say something or someone correct us, but we need to also be, like Vaisheshika Prabhu says, I live to be corrected. He's such an inspiring devotee, so amazing, he says, I live to be corrected. So we always need to be introspective and be open to correction. Of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed by his own example when there was the Digvijay Pandit who came to challenge, who came to the village to challenge all the great schools, defeated him, and his disciples, his followers, were laughing, and he immediately said, stop, So, and then in private, he chastised that Digvijay Pandit. So it's not that one can just do that. If one has a position of a parent and a teacher, one can, in privacy, correct that disciple or the follower. And if one has a relationship with that person. But most of the time, devotees don't want to say anything, even though it's so obvious. Everyone else can see, this person is, not even attending Mangalarti, or they want to push themselves forward, or they want to give class and they want to lead this, things like that. So we need to see, and also for myself, as you're speaking, we want to do many things, but we need to see that the service opportunities will come. It will come naturally. We don't need to push ourselves or bulldoze ourselves forward. The opportunity comes when Krishna sees, okay, this person is developing more, the consciousness is becoming purified, okay, I'll give more opportunity, because the transparency is there, and through that transparency we are able to give Krishna consciousness. So we can only give what we we can only give what we have. So the potency is there to the degree, like Krishna says, to the degree of the surrender, to that degree I reciprocate. So similarly, to the degree that we surrender, to that degree we are able to, people's heart become opened up. Like Vaisheshika Prabhu, he's such an incredible devotee, there's that verse, the 6 Goswamis are compared to, they are very dear to the ruffians and also to the saints. So Vaisheshika Prabhu is like that, and we have many devotees in our movement like that their heart is so surrendered to the lotus feet of Krishna that they have this potency. Immediately they open their mouth and you just want to surrender to that person. And the devotees at ISKCON Silicon Valley, they have given their heart to Vaisheshika Prabhu and his wife Nirakula Mataji. They call her Guru Ma. They serve them so nicely. So there's that example of Tadviri Pranipatena, serving the spiritual master sincerely, rendering humble menial service. They are rendering such amazing service at that temple. They're going out distributing books, what to speak of humble menial service. So we see all these amazing devotees and we take inspiration from them. So in the purport of this verse, the question is, how does the living entity become conditioned? So we are spirit souls, so there are many, all living entities are spirit souls. There's a tree body, insect body, a worm body. There's 8,400,000 species of life. And it's given in that Bhagavad Gita verse, Yam Yam Vapi Smaram Bhavam. So it talks about how whatever thought we have at the end of our life, that we will attain. And it's also a cumulative process. So whatever we are doing in our life, throughout our life, and that will influence what we think of at the time of death. So we want to take advantage of this process, and we want to be in the association of devotees. So because by the association of devotees, in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's also a verse which talks about that the association of devotees is the most powerful and is the key aspect of making progress in one's spiritual life. So we are living entities, we are covered by this gross material body. And then we also have a subtle body, which is the mind, the intelligence, and the false ego. So when one may think, okay, someone is very pious and doing good things. So at the end of their life, there's what one deserves and what one is ordained by one's karmic activities. So even if one gets a good birth in the next life, it may be a demigod body, so that body becomes more subtle. It's not on a gross platform like us. It becomes more subtle, and then gradually when we evolve into higher planetary systems, then the body becomes more subtle. But our goal is not to go up in the material, and then we may also fall down. It's given that once the pious credits are finished, just like a bank account, we use up all our good, all the money, our good karma. Then we fall down, and then we again have to come in the material world, go through birth, death, old age, and disease. Go through, have a baby body, go through school, go through the same process, be disturbed by the adhyatmic, adhibautic, and adhyatmic kleshas, being disturbed by our own mind. Oh, that person doesn't like me, this person did that, whatever. Or disturbed by material elements, or it's too cold, it's too hot, and then disturbed by other living entities, the mosquitoes and things like that. So many things, and then we come back to this material world, and even if we're in a good material situation, that will finish up, just like a material bank account. But when we develop the spiritual bank account, it's a transcendental exchange. Whatever we put into the spiritual bank account, at the end of the life, we'll start from that bank account. It's not like materially we use up the money and it's finished, gone, and we have to start again. Spiritual bank account, we continue, we take on from that same point where we stopped, and we go on further. So Krishna Kirtan Prabhu has sent me these 3 verses of a while ago, explaining the karma for devotees. So here it says that one's cumulative activities. So we get a birth, or whatever we are experiencing now, whether good or bad, is because of our past and our current activities in the material world. So Krishna Kirtan Prabhu sent me this verse, Srimad Bhagavatam 6.2.49, Mriyamano Hare Nama. So it's talking about Ajamil. He was born in a Brahmana family. So Brahmana is classified as those that are born in like the saintly or scholarly class. So he was very saintly, but because he once observed a prostitute was I would say in modern terms, making out with someone, and then he became attached to that prostitute. So he fell down from his good activities, and then he started stealing, and just to maintain that prostitute, he was doing many abominable activities, and he was having sex with her, had so many children. At the age of almost 80, he had a little child at 5 years old. That means he was engaged in sexual activity even at the old age, which is meant to be time for self-realization and surrendering more to the Lord. So in that purport it says, so then he actually, at the time of death, he actually saw that his soul was being pulled by these living entities that are called Yamadutas. So we hear many cases of where nurses and doctors, they report when people are in hospital, then they are screaming and they say, "Get away from me," they are screaming because they are seeing in Bhagavatam, it's described that these living entities, they exist, but they are on a subtle body, so not everyone can see them. So they are coming to drag that soul away to get punishment for whatever sinful activities they have done, unless it's a devotee and have done some spiritual activities, then you may not be seeing the Yamadutas, so, and then the Vishnu Dutas, the servants of Lord Vishnu, were sent, and they were saying, "Don't take this Ajamil," and they said, "Why are you stopping us? Why can't we take him?" And then they were stopped from taking him. So they went back to their master, Yamaraj, who is the Lord of Death, and they said, "Why weren't we allowed to take this Ajamil? We thought you were the ultimate authority." So it is explained by Prabhupada that it's because Ajamil was, he had actually by Krishna's grace named his son Narayan, which is the name of Lord Krishna. And he was so attached to that little boy, he was so sweet. A 5-year-old child is very sweet, and he's calling him Narayan, Narayan, come and eat, Narayan, come and sit on his lap and all these things. So his heart was becoming purified. So he wasn't committing offenses and saying, "Oh Narayan," I'm saying Narayan, and my sinful activities are being nullified. He was doing it without offense, so he was just calling Narayan. And Krishna is so kind that he saw this, okay, that he's chanting my names. So in that purport, Prabhupada explains, constantly chanting the name, even once, inoffensively, this protects him eternally. This protects him eternally. He need only wait for the result of the chanting to mature in due course of time. So the other day, there was a question devotees were asking about the time frame, and Ramai Swami was saying, in a moment we can go back to Godhead. So that moment is relative, because also we hear that in the demigods the time frame is much longer. Just like we have experience in the material world, is an insect, a stick insect, and its lifespan is very short. And just like the dog or the cow, their lifespan by our human terms is very short compared to our life. So that Lord Brahma lives for millions of years. So it's very relative, but it's talking about King Katvanga or Kulashekar, who said by moment's association. Yes, thank you, Prabhu. So King Katvanga, he was fighting for the demigods in the heavenly planet, and then he came back to the material world. But before that, he asked the demigods, they wanted to give him a benediction. So he asked them, "How much time do I have left in the material world?" And they said, "Just a moment." So he gave up everything, and within a moment he achieved love of Godhead. So we have that opportunity. We are hearing all these verses from Bhagavatam, following the process, hearing from devotees. So we have this opportunity. Just like this in Mahabharata, written by Krishna Dharma Prabhu, he's talking about this sage called, I think it's Lomaharshana or Lomaharshana Rishi, that he lives for millions of years. So he goes through even so many kalpas. and he's living very simply like a sage. And someone said, why don't you build a house? He says, oh, life is very temporary. So a sage who lives for millions of years, even through so many cycles of Lord Brahma, he's saying it's very flickering, very momentary. So what to speak of our consciousness? We're trying to make our situation comfortable in the material world, try to establish a household, have children and that. And it's very momentary, flickering moment, and this life is finished. So I'll just end there if anyone has any questions, comments or corrections. I think Shri Hari Bhakti Mataji has a question or comment or addition.
Vaishnavi, I didn't really stay your class today because I had somewhere else to check, but in passing I did hear that you said we have to do things in association with devotees, and I got the opportunity to go to Kishori's house, and it was Mandakiri and her husband and a few others, and we were in a circle and we had our Bhagavad Gitas, because it was Gita Jayanti on Tuesday, correct? Yeah, so we did it on Sunday. Yeah. And we were just doing the translation, and it was wonderful. In front of the deities, Krishna Bhagavan, wonderful, filled my heart up. It was more potent than in the association place.
Thank you. Thank you. It was, that reminds me that also on that day, Srimati Mataji and Sadhana Mataji were sitting directly in front of Srila Prabhupada, and they did the whole translation. They were reading all the English translation of the Bhagavad Gita as well. So similar experience, the potency of the association of devotees. And also Vaisheshika Prabhu, I think they alternate, I'm not sure, they alternate. In Gita Jayanti they do all the English, and they have it on the projected on the board, and they do the verses so in English, so everyone participates. So I was just watched some of it on when Vaisheshika Prabhu did at ISKCON Silicon Valley, and the devotees were sharing their realization that in the association of devotees it's so potent and so powerful, that the association of devotees.
Just a comment in relation to a gentleman named Sundaraya. So Prabhupada said, oh, this is a very good system. Everyone should name their child giving the name of Krishna, Narayana. Because as we call him that their whole life, come here, Krishna. Do this, Krishna, take it to Shara, etc., etc. So he said, this is a very good system.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for confirming that system.
Just quickly add a comment, if that's okay with you. Just you mentioned that the Yamdus is coming and dragging people out of their bodies. So we read these things in the scriptures, and they're not actually fully believe it. You know, there's dogs, and they're describing the Bhagavatam as the hound of hell. You know. They go ahead with the Yamdus. But if you mention the medical people, if you Google the word eternal restlessness, this is what they call it. This all over the world, there are many nurses and doctors that witness people saying, get these dogs away from me, you know, we're these horrible people. So there's people who actually witness people going through this experience in many places. The reason I'm bringing this up is if you want to increase your faith, you can actually see these things are documented in the material world. It's not just about it. Eternal restlessness. Hounds of hell come to get you. If you're sinful, that is.
Okay, thank you. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vaishnava ki jai.